Assalamu alayka ya Rasul Khuda. Assalamu alayka ya Amir al-Mu'mineen. Assalamu alayka ya Bibi Fatimat al-Zahra. Assalamu alayka ya Imam Hassan, ya Imam Hussein. Assalamu alayka ya Abu Abdullah. Assalamu alayka ibn Rasulullah. Our deepest condolence to an Imam of a time, Imam Mahdi alayhi salam. We can't even imagine the pain he's going through. It's the day of Ashura, the painful day where we can't even give a smile on her face. Ya Imam Zamana, all our condolences is for you, because we can't really imagine the pain, because Bibi Fatima Zahra has lost an entire family in one day. And we praise Bibi Zainab Salamullah Alaiha for the courage she has shown and the message she spread with so much bravery, and that's the power of a woman. This is your host, Sister Zeenat. With me I have a speaker, Alama Maryam Muaddal. Assalamu alaikum, sister. How are you?
Walaikum assalam. Alhamdulillah, I'm good. How are you?
Alhamdulillah.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين.
Sister, this is the most painful day, the day of Ashura, where every year when it comes, our heart breaks down into 1,000 pieces, and we will be discussing about Bibi Zainab Salamullah Alaiha and the power and the courage that she showed, and she changed the entire history and put the reality of Yazid, the way she put it down, showing us the example how a woman is supposed to live in the face of the oppressors. What did we learn from Bibi Zainab Salamullah Alaiha?
So just to recap what we were talking about so far, we said that we see Zainab alayhi salam, she's helping her brother constantly during the time of the day of Ashura, until the point where it gets to where Abu Abdullah alayhi salam, he's killed. And you see that there's a change in the way she has to act, because her responsibility changes. Once Imam Hussein is killed, it's her responsibility to lead the caravan, lead the caravan of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, and to maneuver and deal with the ladies of the group and also the children, and as well deal with the enemy as well, and be able to handle them and trying to spread the message of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. So one thing we said that was that we see that she ended up being in this position where she had to show leadership. She was a leader. And we see that she takes a political stance against the tyrant of the time. But we see that she doesn't do this out of just wanting to be political or have a political role or try to achieve leadership. We see that her main identity was an abd, a servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so that's what was her pivot point. And that's with all of the Ahlul Bayt. Their first duty, their first and foremost duty, and their identity was being a servant to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now sometimes that falls under becoming a leadership, that your responsibility becomes to be a leader. And this is where we see Zainab alayhi salam fall into, where she has to step up to the plate and guide all the women in the caravan and the children and take a position, a stance against the tyrant. And I think that's really important for us to learn as a role model for women, is that sometimes we do have to take positions of leadership if it's called upon us, if it's our duty. And we see that with Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam. She also took that position when it was the time to do so. And so it's really important. But the thing is, the key point is, it's being able to tell if it's your responsibility or not. Zainab alayhi salam was able to tell, and it was because she had that basira, that insight, and the wisdom to be able to decipher that this is her duty right now. And this is something important that for us to be able to also be able to decipher and be able to understand. And it happens through having a furqan. So a furqan is something that it's mentioned in the Quran. For a furqan is that something that is blessed to the believers, that helps them be able to differentiate between haqq and batil, what is right and what is wrong, what is their duty and what's their responsibility. And we have in the verses of the Quran, يَهْدِي بِهِ اللَّهِ مَنِ اتَّبَعَ رِضْوَانَهُ سُبُلَ السَّلَامِ وَيَخْرُجُهُم مِّنَ الظُّلُمَاتِ إِلَى النُّورِ بِإِذْنِهِ وَيَهْدِيهِمْ إِلَى الصِّرَاطِ الْمُسْتَقِيمِ. Allah says that Allah guides him who he follows his pleasure to the ways of safety and brings them out of utter darkness into light by his will and guides them to the right path. So this verse is basically saying that Allah will guide anyone who follows his pleasure, who wants whatever he wants, right? And he takes them out of darkness into light with his will and will guide him to the right path, him or her. And this is a verse that can apply to anyone. If a person follows the path of Allah and does what they're supposed to do, Allah will help them decipher between right and wrong, what is their duty, what's not their duty, if they implement what they already know. So wherever we are in terms of our understanding, our knowledge, if we apply that and do the best we can, that itself will get us closer to Allah, and Allah will give us more guidance. So it's just doing as what you can at the moment, and then asking Allah to guide you, and Allah will inshallah guide you more. So sometimes people will ask, or like, I don't know what my duty is. Well, do what you know right now, and then you'll find out as time passes, and Allah guides you more, and you do what you can do. So that's important to learn from Bibi Zainab alayhi salam, and that's what she had. She had that light in her that guided her what to do. Same thing with Fatima Zahra, and same thing with all the Ahlul Bayt as well. So with that said, because today is the day of Ashura, I want to read some parts of the story, and this is some of the points that she taught when she's both in Damascus and both in front of Ibn Ziyad in Kufa. I want to read part of the khutbah, part of some of her words that she said, just because when you read her words, you realize how powerful she was and how brave she really was. So I'll just start. When Ibn Ziyad asked, "Have you seen what Allah has done to your brother and his Ahlul Bayt?" she replies, "I did not see anything but beauty. They were people for whom Allah had written martyrdom and have reached their bliss." She also said, "Soon God will gather you together, then you will see who will be in trouble." Once they arrived in Damascus, the daughter of the prince of the believers, Zainab alayhi salam, no longer was able to bear the nonsense of what Yazid said. "Yazid, do you think of having narrowed the earth and heavens, leaving us with no alternatives? Do you think by dragging us as slaves from one place to another, we are humiliated before God and you are honored? Do you think your victory has increased your nobility with God?" Then she said, "Yazid, I swear by God that you have done nothing more than tore yourself into pieces. It will definitely be with these vile actions, shedding the blood of the family of the messenger of God, and violating the respect due to them, that you will present yourself in front of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam on the day of judgment, when God will gather all and give everyone what he deserves. In fact, God says in the Quran, 'Do not think those who have become martyrs in the way of God are dead. They are alive and enjoy the blessings of God.' Soon, the one who deceived you and other people, Muawiyah, will realize what terrible punishment is up to oppressors, and who will be in the worst place and will have the weaker army. Although, because of the events I was forced to talk to you, you must know that you have no value for me." Now, it's interesting. What do you think when you hear these words?
This is like subhanallah, because you are a prisoner and you're standing in front of the biggest oppressor of the entire world, who actually massacred your entire family, chopping the heads of the kids and the adults, and still you have that, you're not even scared, you have that courage to speak in front. And that can be only daughter of Imam Ali alayhi salam and Bibi Fatima Zahra salamullah alayha, who has this courage. And this is a big lesson for us to learn. Don't be scared of the oppressor. Such a beautiful words. She says the first thing when he said, "You are humiliated." And she said, "Do you think just because you dragged us on the street, You killed a man and humiliating us, that you have become honored and we have become humiliated. Shaheed people are always alive in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Those can be the words of daughter of Imam Ali alayhi salam.
Yeah. So she's extremely brave.
Yeah, very brave.
And you see this, it's like she's like her father, Ali ibn Abi
Yes.
Talib, like she's not scared of him, of Yazid or Ibn Ziyad
Nobody.
whatsoever. And she just tells it as it is. And she says that you're only looking at it from the zahir, or like the outer perspective. You're not
Yes.
seeing the inner perspective of it. And the reality is that you lost the war. You lost
Yes.
everything. And you, on the day of judgment, you'll have to respond to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So she's really giving an insight to what it really he has to deal with. And that's when, and this is when she says these words, that's when everything starts turning around and they start giving respect to them.
Yeah, and the people around him, they started
start
telling him that
crying.
Yazid, you're wrong, you did a wrong thing.
They all
This is the
start crying too as
Yes,
well. Yeah.
this is the family of the Holy Prophet. And this even reminds me of a very good example of the 21st century, when we ladies, Muslims, go through, men go through tough times where we are being taunted and, racism, and talking about discrimination, Be like Bibi Zainab Salamullah Alaiha. Do you think so by humiliating us, you are like putting yourself up?
Exactly.
Making them realize with your beautiful eloquence of word, what is Islam?
Yeah.
What is hijab?
Yeah.
And this is what we learn from Bibi Zainab Salamullah. In a day-to-day small life, you don't even face this kind of situation.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's such an amazing story when you hear her words. Now, since we talked about that portion of the story, I also want to come back to the part when she in Karbala, since today is the day of Ashura, and even though we talked about this before, I still want to remember this point again. And the part of the story where she's talking when she finds out that Imam Hussein has been killed, and she goes to the battlefield and she finds the body of Hussein alayhi salam. And the first thing she does is, because there were so many spears on her body, she starts taking them all out. And she turns the body because he had been turned over. And obviously his body was beheaded.
Yes.
So there was no head on this.
He was laying down on the spears.
Yeah,
His
he was
body
on
was laying down.
And so she takes the body, lifts him up, and says, "Oh, Allah accepts this sacrifice from us." And then she turns to Medina and starts talking to the Prophet. And she says, "Ya Muhammad, this is Hussein, Haza Hussein. This is Hussein. This is what your ummah has done to Hussein." She starts talking, and it's such a amazing, like, what she does is just amazing. How many of us can lose someone and then ask, "Oh Allah, like, please accept this from me." Not only is she's broken internally, yet she still has so much humility to ask, "Oh Allah, please." She asks to accept her sacrifice from them, from Ala Muhammad. And it's like, how great of a person you have to be able to do that. You see that she's such a magnificent person, where her chest is so open. She has sadr. She's such a noble person that she's able to do it. Internally, she really shows who she is as a person, like how amazing she is. And it really shows. And then she turns around and then starts talking to the Prophet. And this is the part where she's shedding light, and we're like, this is what the Ummah has done. And it wasn't just that she was talking to the Prophet, it was also for other people to hear, and for the Ummah to start waking up, like, this is what you have done, people of Kufa, the army, like, you guys have slaughtered the grandson of the Prophet. And they were aware, but it seemed like they had put it aside. They weren't thinking straight, or whatever it was. So this is where Zainab alayhi salam is shedding light upon it and trying to wake up people. And from this very moment, her message this is where she's starting to wake up people and bring up the message. And she's acting up as a messenger, basically, to spread this message. And so that we know about the message, and we cry for Imam Hussein every day.
We understand, we get an insight, because we don't have that insight to even understand these things. She made us understand by her actions, how to be.
Yeah. So one thing we see is that we see her iman really shine through, like her faith is something that really, really shines through, because when someone passes away, it's very hurtful and it's very it breaks a person.
Yes.
I don't know if have you ever seen a person who's lost a family member?
Yes.
The way they are is just, they're completely broken.
Lost.
They're very lost.
4 people have to come and support them.
Yeah.
You
yeah.
know?
And
Yeah.
you see in this scenario, she doesn't have any support, if
Yes,
anything.
and she's supporting everyone.
She's supporting everyone. I mean, in the story, it's that Sakina comes and finds her there, and she asks Zainab, like, who is this? She doesn't even recognize that it's her father, right? So she asks her, who's this? And she tells her, like, this is Hussein. And so she starts also, like, I guess crying, or I don't know what she did, and then apparently the enemies come and they put them aside. But it's just amazing to see that. Now again, it's one thing that you see is that her belief in akhirah is something else that really pushes her through. When she's talking to Yazid, she's mentioning it, hey, on the day of judgment, you're going to have to talk to the Prophet.
Yes.
And you're going to have to respond to him. And it's like she's constantly reminding them that there's an akhirah, that this is something that you will see the punishment there. It's not just only effective for the enemy to wake them up, but it's also effective for her because it calms her down. When you believe in the akhirah, when you believe that there is a judgment there, it calms you down. So like, for example, when my brother passed away, I remember I was very worried. I was like, what will happen to him? Will he end up in paradise? Will he end up in hell? And I remember that it was funny because the next day after we buried him, one of my close friends from Iran called me, and she said, yeah, they've seen dreams from him and that he's in paradise, and that just calmed me down so much. And knowing that your loved one is in paradise, that's just
In peace.
amazing. It's so peaceful. We had relatives who weren't so practicing and religious, and I remember them coming to our house and they were just screaming and crying, and my father had to go to our family member and just calm her down and tell her, look, he's in a good place, don't worry about her. It's so peaceful knowing that your loved one isn't just gone.
Yes.
It's such like, having that belief there is just amazing. And I think not believing in that just is, if you lose someone, it's difficult. It's very difficult. It's very hard.
Because the Bibi Zainab Salamullah Alaiha is so confident. She knows about everything, that she's making people realize, not only the people, the oppressors realize this is your position, this is his position. You know, and definitely this really proved that she's really the strongest woman. You know, she's the leader.
Yeah. And in the story, it's interesting because we see that Bibi Zainab alayhi salam still would get up, and at night she still does the Salat al-Layl.
Yes.
She still continues with her prayers. She doesn't stop. She sits down, but it's because
her back is bended. This is
her
also
back is bended. I mean, obviously this event of Karbala is very heavy and difficult.
Yeah.
There's no doubt in that. And I don't think any of us can truly understand how heavy it is.
Heavy it is.
I mean, when I lost my brother, that was heavy, and then I realized, wow, like, it's one thing just to lose your brother. It's another thing to lose half of your family members.
Yes.
And if you look at what the Zainab alayhi salam, she lost her sons, Ali Akbar, like all the brothers, Ali Abbas alayhi salam, and it's like, it was really, really dense, and it was very, very heavy. I don't think a lot of us would ever be able to bear.
On top of that, they are being whipped.
Yeah.
And lack of food and water, and how they are tortured by the words, how they are made to walk, the physical torture, the mental torture, everything, but still she's so strong.
Yeah, all of them. And it wasn't just Bibi Zainab alayhi salam, Sakina, all the women on the caravan were very strong.
Very strong,
Very strong. And you see that they're standing behind Zainab, and they're not backing down. When Zainab says something, they listen.
Yeah.
So they were very selfless as well.
Yeah.
So you see that, and it's just amazing. It's an amazing thing that, like, you see that Hussein alayhi salam is able to raise such a family, right? The Imams were able to raise such families, and it wasn't just who they were. It was also that they were able to train people and teach people how to behave and how to act. And I think that's an amazing part of Karbala, is to see the way Sakina acts, and the way Zainab acts, and the way Rabab, all of these people who are in it. And it was just like, wow, like, we all have that potential in us to be the best of what we can be. maybe we can't be Hussein alayhi salam, but we can be the best of
Yes.
who we become.
Learn from them.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the point with Karbala, and really shedding these tears that we have on the day of Ashura, especially in these nights, is what can change us. These tears are the tears that will change who we are.
Yes, we should learn. That's why we are here to learn that. What do you mean by Karbala?
Yeah.
What did we learn by Bibi Zainab Salamullah alayha? Because the tears is very important, definitely. This is the power. People think tears is a weakness. No, it's not the weakness. It's the power. But what the tears is teaching us, why we are crying, because we are learning about Karbala. We're getting close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We're getting close to the Imam of our time.
See, the thing is with tears, it's interesting because in the West, it's usually seen as a weakness.
Yes.
But within an Islamic frame, it's not.
It's not.
It's not. If anything, it's powerful. These tears cleanses our soul.
Yes.
And now people might wonder, well, why is it so important? Why is there so much thawab and reward given to these tears? And it's because when you cry for Abu Abdullah, you're sad essentially for the event of Karbala, what's happening to the Imam. And so what ends up happening, unconsciously, your mind is thinking things. You are unconsciously, and you don't understand this, but you're like, oh, I wish I could help the Imam. I wish I was there with the Imam. I wish, right? We all wish that, right? We all wish that, oh, I wish I was with Abu Abdullah, because we love Abu Abdullah. We love him. We see him as a superhero, right? For little children, they say like Superman as their superhero, but within Shia Islam, Imam Hussein is our superhero, right? Because he saved humanity in a sense. He saved Islam. And we see him as someone we want to emulate. We want to follow his footsteps. And so when we have these feelings and we're like, we want this, subconsciously we're thinking these things without realizing it. And so it's putting us in a path toward getting closer to him and closer to Allah. And so it's changing our beliefs at the same time. And to be wanting of being a follower of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, and inshallah being a follower of Imam Mahdi, the Imam of our time, right? Because the Imams are just one light, essentially. It's not that Imam Hussein did one thing and Imam Mahdi did one thing. No, they're all in one path.
One path,
right?
yeah.
If it was opposite, where Imam Mahdi was in the place of Imam Hussein, he would act the same way that Abu Abdullah did.
But again, being with Imam Mahdi, like the ladies of Karbala, we have to realize that this is our century, this is our age.
Exactly.
Imam Zamana belongs to our generation,
Yeah.
you know. So being with the Imam, we have to understand Bibi Zainab Salamullah alayha and Bibi Sakina Salamullah alayha and all the ladies and the kids, because this is going to make us strong, and this is going to connect us with the Imam of a time. Even though if Imam is not around us, somewhere when he comes, when his occurrence comes, inshallah, reappearance comes. So we have our own responsibilities to perform in this 21st century. And how is that going to be? It's just like going to be like Bibi Zainab Salamullah.
Exactly. One thing I just wanted to mention is about Sakina. I was reading something about her and I found it really interesting. And so apparently, I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, one of Imam Hassan's children asked for the hand of one of the daughters of Imam Hussein. And Imam Hussein says that, marry Fatima, don't marry Sakina. And he explains this, saying that Sakina is, she's not here, as in like her faith is so high, she's constantly seeing things in the unseen world, the ghaib, and that she wouldn't be a good wife to cook and clean as much, and that's her station. Because when we think of Sakina, a lot of times, unfortunately, people think, oh, it's like she was just a crybaby or astaghfirullah.
She was a kid though, yeah.
I think she was 13, 14. She's a young woman. Like but she was actually at a high state, like in terms of spirituality. Most people don't know this and when we see that Imam Hussein, we have narrations that say that Sakina alayhi salam would see, when she would see her head of her father, she would see that he's reciting Quran, right? And Ayatollah Jawadi Omni says that this isn't a physical seeing. This is a seeing with the heart.
Yeah.
That Bibi Sakina was able to see, meaning that, and to hear that, the recitation of her father when he's in that state of her, like it's just the head being on the spear or anywhere else she saw it. She was seeing this with her heart, and she was hearing her with her heart. Not everyone could understand what she was seeing. So on a station-wise, in terms of spirituality, she was at a high level. She was a scholar. She was an ulama, essentially. So it's important to understand, like, no, her understanding was at a higher level. She was an amazing person to aspire to. And that's why you see that she's still able to be strong. She helped Zainab alayhi salam in all portions of from the story, from being into Karbala, from going to Kufa to going to Damascus to Syria. She's constantly supporting Zainab alayhi salam and being there and being supportive. So I thought that was interesting. When I was looking up the story, I found that really interesting, because we usually don't talk about her that much, and it's interesting. And I think the point to take from her is that Imam was, just as a side note, it's interesting to realize that Imam Hussein is kind of saying that, okay, it's important for people to get married, but compatibility is also important.
Important, yeah.
So she's, even though like Sakina is a very amazing woman, but he doesn't encourage necessarily any guy to get married to her, because she might have her strengths and her weaknesses, and not every person might be a good fit for her. And I think that's really important, because unfortunately sometimes when I've seen when sisters say no to a brother, like for a good reason, for like compatibility issues, a lot of times they get shut down there, and like, why are you saying no? You should be saying yes. And it's like, well, if they're not compatible, the fact that she said no is a good thing.
Yeah.
Because personality is important. And I think it's something that I took from this story of Imam Hussein dealing with Sakina's khostigars, or I think they say rishte in Urdu.
Yes, the marriage proposal.
Marriage proposal. And it's interesting that Imam Hussein, he pays attention to that, to the compatibility of people as well.
I've never heard about this thing. This is something, because there are a few narrations saying Bibi Sakina was this age or this age. Whatever, the message is important. For me, message is important.
I mean, the thing with age and stuff, there's different narrations, so we don't know. But because Ayatollah Javadi Amali had mentioned this story, I mentioned it.
So
coming from him, it was I think it's in his book, Kawsar Karbala. So if you want to look that up, you can. But when I was reading, I was like, wow, this is very interesting. I found that really, and it's just amazing to know that she was such at a high level.
Yes.
So I thought that was interesting. And so with that said, what I want to do now is try to dive into the surah.
Fajr.
Inshallah.
And Surah Fajr is from the Holy Quran, which is even said that it is related with Imam Hussein alayhi salam. The break of day or the dawn. It has like 30 verses. By the dawn, by the 10 nights, the first 10 days of month of Dhul Hajjah, it means. And by the even and the odds of all the creations of Allah. And by the nights when it departs, there is indeed in them the proof oaths, sufficient proofs for men of understanding, and that they should avoid all kinds of sin and disbeliefs. Did you, O Muhammad, not see though how your Lord dealt with Ad people, the people of Ad, who were very tall like lofty pillars and strong, the like of which were not created in the land, and with Thamud people, who cut out rocks in the valley to make dwellings, and with Pharaoh, who had pegs, who used to torture men by binding them to pegs. Who did transgress beyond bourne in the land in the disobedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and made therein much mischief? So your Lord poured on them different kinds of severe torment. Verily your Lord is ever watchful over them. And for man, when his Lord tries him by giving him honor and gifts, then he says, my Lord has honored me, he's happy. But when he tries him by his means of hardship, then they say, my Lord has humiliated me. Nay, but you treat not the orphans with kindness and generosity. You neither treat them well nor give them the exact right of inheritance, and urge not on the feeding of the poor people. And you devour your inheritance all with greed, and you with love wealth with much love. Nay, when the earth is ground to powder, and your Lord comes with the angels in rows, and hell will be brought near the day, on that day will man remember. But how will that remembrance then avail him? He will say, alas, would that I had sent forth good deeds for this in my life. So on that day none will punish as he will punish, and none will bind as he will bind. It will be said to the pious, O you, the one in complete rest and satisfaction, come back to your Lord, well pleased yourself and well pleasing unto him. Enter you then among my honored slaves, and enter you my paradise. This is the meaning of 30 verses. It was so beautiful. When I was reading out, I was certainly enjoying that, how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spoke about you people who have been oppressors on the earth. On the hereafter, you won't be able to do anything because I am going to be punishing you, and you will be regretful of all your transgressions you did. Very beautiful. Now again, because we will definitely go along continuing this episode, the next one talking about how is this connected to Imam Hussain alayhi salam. The name Imam Hussain is not mentioned, right? But you see there is a connection, right? Oppression, Yazid is also not mentioned, but he talks about oppressors in general. So this meaning would be very interesting when you start talking about it. Definitely in the next episode, the beautiful meaning of Surah Fajr, which is from the Holy Quran, which is connection to Imam Hussain alayhi salam for all the brothers and Sunni sisters, and all the mankind, all the Muslims. So we have to understand this very carefully. So sister, thank you so much for being part of the show. The explanation of Bibi Zainab Salamullah alaiha was really, very beautiful, because the power of the woman should be understood by everyone, because we are inshallah, the companions of Imam Zamana, the savior which the entire world is waiting. Not even us, the Christians are waiting, the Jews is waiting, Hindus are waiting, everyone is waiting. So as a woman, we have to understand the role played by Bibi Zainab Salamullah alaiha, so that we can understand when Imam comes or before he comes, how to prepare ourselves and how to be with the Imam of the time. And thank you everyone for being with us, for being part of the show. Stay tuned for another episode. Until then, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.